And this is what Python programming language is used for, as we have been seeing in the webinar until now. Let us not spend too much time on this. So we have seen all this, and it can be used for teaching. That means it is a beginner's language. It can be used for teaching programming, and it is used for network programming, socket programming, the interface between different systems on a network, can be used for operating systems and language development. You can develop new programming language using Python as well, and so on and so forth. So these are some applications uses of the Python programming language. And this is how a Python program is executed. Now we are going towards the actual thing about our seminar. We want to see the execution of a few programs in Python. So develop the source code, and all these, friends, we need not worry as a programmer. Even I don't worry whether it is converted, the compiler converts it into bytecode, and then it is converted into machine code, then it is executed on the computer. It is just a background process that takes place when we write and execute a Python program. So before we proceed, before we actually go to the features of the Python programming language, small comparison between C and Python, because as I said, I assume that many of us are familiar with the C programming language that we might have come across in our first year of engineering. So a few differences, I have listed many differences, a few differences before we actually go to seeing programming in Python. So the major difference that I find is this fourth one. Type discipline is static and very weak in C language, and type discipline is strong in Python, as we will see. Pointers. Many first year or many freshers or many people who are new to programming dread the concept of pointers. But once you learn pointers, there is no other more interesting topic in programming rather than pointers. That is what I feel, since I have understood pointers. So for a fresher, for a student who has not understood pointer, it is like hell. Okay. So good news, Python doesn't use pointer. There is no concept of Python pointers. Okay. Very interesting. And array index can be always positive in C language, but in Python it can be negative as well. As you will see, negative indexes are valid in Python, and Python is dynamically typed language. So here it is, dynamic. So we'll see what is meant by dynamic and strong typing in Python. So friends, these are some of the differences between C and Python. So proceeding further, what are the hardware and software requirements for Python? The Python Software Foundation, PSF, is the one which maintains and develops the Python programming language. So you can go to this website, python.org, and you can download Python directly, and you will get an IDE for developing the Python programs called IDLE. Okay, you can do this, or better, Anaconda is the organization, leading provider of web integrated development environment like Jupyter, Spider, and all, as I will show you in today's webinar. And a third interesting point, nowadays, seeing the popularity of Python, organizations like Google and Kaggle and all, they are coming up with online platforms for users to develop Python and share Python programming, to practice Python programming. So we will see. I'll show you Google Collaboratory as well. You can use Kaggle also. Kaggle is also there, and Kaggle is a platform which provides many competitions and platforms, notebooks, and all, and it provides code also developed by different developers, which can be shared and you can learn from that code. I'll show you the example of Anaconda, Jupyter, and Google Collaboratory in today's webinar. And to execute, Python requires, the basic requirements are nowadays what we have, i3 machine and with 4 GB RAM, and the more the better. Better than i3 machine, that's better. You have more than 4 GB RAM, that's also better. These are the basic requirements I can say. And now coming to the actual Python language. Okay. So Python data types, any language begins with data types, and in Python also we have various inbuilt data types called numbers, strings, Boolean, tuple, and mutable data types called lists, dictionaries, and sets. And these are the operators in Python, as we will see. And this is the part of the syntax that I wanted to show. Python uses white spaces and indents to denote blocks of code. And lines, statements within the same block are indented at the same level. And to end a code block, we remove the indentation. So with this background, friends, let us go to actually executing some Python programs. So if you are attending this webinar on a laptop, what you do is you just go to Google and you just say Google Collaboratory. Okay. You do this. If you are interested in executing whatever I show online, as I do it, as you want to do it, just go to Google Collaboratory, search this, and the first result that you get, Google Colab. So click on this and you get an interface like this. Just say new notebook. Okay. Just say click on new notebook. That's it. So friends, no need of any installation, no need of any time consuming, okay, error messages and so on and so forth. Executing and learning Python is as simple as this, right? The screen that you see on your screen, the window that you see on your screen, that's it. This is all that is required to do to learn Python programming language. It is as easy as that. So remember, whenever Google gets into something, then that means that really is the language of the future. So Google has come into supporting the development of Python for beginners like us. So that means there is something, this language. So you see this, you have this title called Untitled 5. So just click on this, you can rename this notebook. So Python development is done in something called notebooks. Okay. So this is called a notebook. Like I said earlier, new notebook. You can even create new notebook here, file, new notebook, another new notebook will be created, and so on and so forth. We don't want to go into all that. Just if you want to rename, you can rename this. Okay. And I'll rename it as Python basics that I want to show demo. That's it. This is the extension that will be there, IPYNB. I Python notebook. NB stands for notebook, PY for Python, and I is the extension from the earlier version. Earlier it was called, these notebooks used to be called IPython, interactive Python. So they have retained that I from there, P5 for Python, NB for notebook. So friends, remember the hello world example. Whenever we learn a new programming language, just say hello world. So printf hello world in C language, for example. So if I want to print hello world in Python, I just say print. So print is the statement, it's not printf, and I give single quotes or you can give double quotes. Both are valid in Python, either single quote or double quote, but the industry orientation is towards single quotes. Okay, just say welcome to programming in Python. Okay, so this is the string that I want to display, and there is no semicolon, there is no extra syntax in Python. That's it, and we are ready with our first line of code in Python. And there is no hash include stdio.h like in other programming languages. There is no main function. Just click on this button. Okay, you can see the pop-up there. Run the cell. Just click on this, and let us see what will happen. And it is executing. So only thing that you require is you require an internet connection. And friends, lo and behold, you have got your first output. You have executed your first statement in Python. Welcome to programming in Python. It is as easy as that. Okay. And to continue, you can add comments using hash. Hash is used for adding comments. Okay, so I will just say our first statement in the Python programming language. Okay, so this is the hash symbol which is used to give a comment, and comments are not executed. If I execute this statement again, you will get the same output. And this is called a cell. In Python parlance, this is called one cell. If I want to add another cell, I'll click on this plus code. It will insert a new cell here, and a new cell is added. And you can make this a new cell into a text cell. We'll not do that right now. So let us continue with more examples of the Python programming language. So let us declare some variables. I say A is equal to 10 and B is equal to 20. Okay, and I say C is equal to A plus B. And it is as simple as that, friends. You need not give any data type for A, any data type for B. You can't say int A, int B, int C. There is no requirement of all that. Python is a dynamically typed language. Let me write it here as a comment. Dynamic typing. Okay. So that means A is a variable and its data type is determined at the time of program execution. Okay. So since I have assigned A is equal to 10, B is equal to 20, and C is equal to A plus B, let us display the sum. The sum is, what is the sum? The sum is C. Okay. Let us print this inside the single quote and I execute this. Okay. The sum is 30. As simple as that. And what are their data types? Now you can find the data types. So I can say the data type of C is, I can say type of C. So this type function is used to get the data type of a particular variable. Execute this again. I get the sum is 30 and the data type of C is integer. Okay, friends. So this is how it is meant by dynamic typing. And it is not necessary that C should be restricted to only integers. We can even change the data type of A, B, and C as well. I can say A is equal to 12 point something and B is equal to 34 point something, and I can say C is equal to the same thing, A plus B, and I use the same two statements to display the sum of A and B as C. And what is the type of C now? Okay, let us see. So friends, the sum of A and B earlier was 30. Is this statement, sum is C, and the data type at this point was integer. Then I assigned a float value to A. So remember, this is a float, and B is also a float. Therefore, C also becomes a float, and their sum is displayed here, 46 point something. And now the data type of C is float. This is what is meant by all that we have been discussing, that it is a dynamic language, and this is what we have discussed. Type discipline is dynamic. That is what we meant. Okay. So very interesting, right? So there is no restriction like in other programming languages, traditional languages. This is the modern way of doing programming, where typing is dynamic. The type of a variable can keep changing during the duration of the program execution. I can even say C is equal to, I can store a string. I can say hello world. Okay. Now I can say the same thing, print the new value in C is this C, and its data type now, is this type of C. So you can see that The new value of C is hello world and its data type now is str. So in a single program, we have changed the data type of a single variable C from int to float and finally to str. And you can keep changing. You can come back to integer, you can store an integer in C, you can store Boolean value in C, and so on and so forth. So this is what is meant by dynamic typing language of Python. So friends, this is how Python works. Let us move on. Then you have, of course, many things that we have to learn. Input statement, output statement. The output statement that we have seen is print statement. You can have input statement as well. So instead of taking A is equal to 10, B is equal to 20, you can say A is equal to integer of input, enter a value in A. Then you can see the same thing for B. So I can say B is equal to enter a value in B, and I can say C is equal to A plus B, and I can display the value of A and B as sum of A and B and their type. Let us copy it and paste it here. Let us execute this cell now. It will ask me for a value in A. I enter, let us say 23, and the value of B I enter 45, and their sum is 68, and data type of C is integer. Since I have entered integers, okay, I can execute the same cell again, and this time let us enter some other value. What we are doing is we are converting them into integers. Whatever you enter, normally we have to do this since input returns a string. So whatever you enter, 45, becomes a string that has to be coerced into an integer. So this int does that, and this int converts this 454 into an integer and assigns it to B. Then only you are getting the sum as an integer. So that is why this coercing is required. This typecasting is required. Friends, let us move on. So I hope you are enjoying this session. Then there are multiple data types. Okay? You have only seen numbers, and maybe you have seen strings. Okay. In numbers, again, you have many different data types. You have seen two types, integers and floats. Then there is complex also. In strings, there are so many different functions to learn. Then you have bool type, which can take two values, true or false. Then there are tuples, and then there are lists, dictionaries, sets, so on and so forth. So let me show you a brief overview of all these different data types. There is a data type called list in Python. So this list is given using square brackets. You can store different elements in this list. You might be familiar with array in other programming languages. So this is a list. I can just say print the elements in the list are. I can say L. That's it. Execute this. Elements in the list are 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. So friends, if you are familiar with other programming languages, there you have to use a for loop. You have to iterate through the list. Okay, and so many things are there. And many beginners make this mistake. Okay, when we say display the elements in the array, so they will just say printf L. They will say, for example, L is the array. Okay, and in Python this can be done. So that is what is meant by it is a very beginner-friendly programming language. Okay, you can just assign this list to L, and you can just display this list, and this is how things work, and that is what it is. Okay. Things are very, very simple. There is no for loop to iterate. You want to display, right? Just display using L. Just say, even if you want to say, make it more simple, you can just say print L. That's it. Okay. That's it. As simple as that. There is no extraneous syntax to learn the Python programming language. Okay. So then there are other data types like dictionary. Let me show you this dictionary. Let us say some dictionary called person. So dictionary is nothing but a set of name, value, or key value pairs. Okay. So dictionary begins with a curly bracket. So in single quotes, we give something called a key value. So let me write the definition of a dictionary here. A set of a set of key colon value pairs. Okay. So here name of the person, let us say name of the person is Suresh, and then another name value pair. Okay. Let us say the branch of engineering that this person belongs to. I give colon and I say, let us say mechanical. Okay. And the city this person is based on is, let us say, the city is Hyderabad, whatever. Okay. That's it. Execute this. There is no output since we have not used the print statement. Say the person's details are these. Okay. So the person details are name is Suresh, branch is mechanical, city is Hyderabad. As simple as that. Okay. So these are the inbuilt data types of Python. And similarly, let me run down since we are running out of time. So these are some data types that I have shown. I have shown you lists, I have shown you dictionaries, I have shown you numbers and strings a little bit. Okay. So, right. These are the operators that are used in Python. New operators are there, in, not in, which are not there in other programming languages, is, not is, okay, and so on and so forth. The other operators we are familiar with. In the arithmetic operators, there is a new operator called integer division. Okay, and we have seen this. So there is a if statement, then there is an elif statement. If time permits, we'll see a few examples. Then we have the while statement and the for statement. In the for, interestingly, you have something called else as well. So this is an interesting statement in Python. Then we have functions. Functions are defined using the def keyword, and functions are used to implement procedural oriented programming and functional programming in Python. So finally, friends, let us wind up this webinar. These are only a few features that I have shown. Maybe I have not even shown, since the time is very less, 0.1% of the Python in today's webinar. We have only discussed the motivation for coming into this field. What is there in it for me? Right? See, in today's world, or whenever, if you want to take a step, if anyone wants to take a step, they have to ask themselves, right, what is there in it for me? So this webinar was trained towards that end, to show you what is the motivation, what is there in it for you, right? So there are many things to gain in today's IT industry, and without Python, I don't think we can survive very much in today's IT industry, unless and until you are a superstar in some other technology. Then only you can survive. Finally, friends, let me wind up by discussing how to become a good Python programmer. Okay. The first thing is we have to be really motivated and decide that we really want to learn the Python programming language come what may. And as I have shown using a few code snippets, it is very easy to learn. There is not much. Those who are not familiar with Python also, you might have learned something in these few steps. And the second thing is we have to keep practicing as we learn. So programming, friends, is a general advice whether you learn C programming, C++, Java, or Python. It is a skill. Programming is a skill, and a skill only develops by practice. There is no such thing that you have learned a skill. No. Whatever skill you have learned, if you don't practice, you will forget that skill. That is the thing about a skill. And a skill can be acquired with anyone. You might be a mechanical engineer, you might be anyone else. It is like driving a car. To drive a car, you need not be a mechanical engineer, even though it is a mechanical engineer and a mechanical object. Okay? It's not a software object, but even a software programmer drives a car, and even an illiterate person who is not even a 10th pass will also drive a car. Why? Because it is a skill, right? Same thing is the case with a programming language. No background is required. Only thing is you need to have common sense. Okay. Not even a heavy dose of logic is required to learn a new programming language. You only need to be good at common sense, you will learn. And second requirement is you should be willing to practice. You have to practice like hell, right, to become perfect in that programming languages. If you are willing to put in the hard work, there is no reason why anyone from any background not be able to learn a programming language. So keep practicing as you learn. And of course, read good books. Many books are available freely on the net, or you can buy some good books on Python and enroll in an online Python course. That is the recommended option nowadays. So Skill-Lync offers many such courses. You can enroll them. And the fourth thing, many people don't go to the fourth and fifth things, right? You have to analyze the official Python documentation from python.org. Like I said earlier, Python Software Foundation is the one which develops and maintains the Python programming language. So you have to go there and read the official Python documentation. And then you have to analyze the source code of some of your favorite modules to really see how they work. So friends, with this, I think we can wind up today's webinar.